Welcome back to another Castle Nathria card review, and if you like totems, you might like this one. It's the Stone Right, a new legendary for Shaman, 4 mana 5/4 battle cry. For the rest of the game, your totems have +2 attack. It's nice to see a buff like this that just lasts forever, so you can keep pumping out totems with some extra aggression here. They're not just helpless little 0/2s chilling on board. They can actually fight back. It's a welcome change for totems indeed. So I see sort of two angles for this card, right? Number one is you could just play this merely to buff your hero power. Maybe you don't run a lot of other totem support, but you just want a nice bonus hero power, and you hope to, weave that in every once in a while and gain some additional value. Maybe use it to grind people out long term. The alternative line, of course, is building a totem deck where you just dump a bunch of totems into a list, and this serves as, a Keleseth or something of sorts, where you get this down early enough and all of your totems are just way better. And on top of that, of course, this is a battle cry, and Shaman currently has a lot of different battle cry synergies from things like Macaw and Bolner, even Bran. You can start to double and triple and get this battle cry off multiple times throughout the course of a game. So you might have totems with +4 attack, +6 attack, +10 attack, maybe even more if you figure out some absolutely crazy shenanigans. And that does definitely sound more intriguing to me from a base hero power standpoint. Pumping out like a 6/2 might start to overwhelm your opponent just because it's so aggressive. Like, as soon as they don't clear one or two of those, it's like, man, I'm taking some gigantic hits. Fusing that into a slightly more aggressive package could just be a good hero power over time. Still only 2 health. It's not buffing health. It's not increasing that survivability. Might be easy for a lot of decks to push through that, but you can kind of see an angle there if you make the totems aggressive enough that they just become this lingering issue over and over again. Now, on the totem deck side of things, we only have 4 totems currently in standard format. Amalgam of the Deep, of course, and 3 other totems for Shaman. I'm assuming you'll get at least a couple more to come along with the Stone Right in this expansion, whether Shaman or neutral cards. But I don't think you'll get a lot more because we've already got a handful of Shaman cards revealed. There's a lot of Evolve Shaman stuff. These kind of could go together, but you don't really want to buff stuff and then evolve it. So it feels like these packages are sort of at odds with one another, and at least a large part of the expansion for Shaman is being dedicated to evolve synergies. So this definitely feels like the kind of secondary package. I don't think you're going to get more than a few cards to go into totems right now. So what that means is putting together a totem list at the moment, that sounds like a challenge. You're not going to be able to fill out much of a list that's dedicated to totems at the moment, unless we just get a ton of like neutral totems tossed in somehow, and then that helps you fill it out. What that means is this card probably has more latent potential for the future than it does right now. This is one where I bet we don't see a lot of this right out of the gate, other than me trying to force it in duels over and over again because I want to see it work. That's going to happen. But in standard format, I'm sure this probably doesn't really make a cut in a list because you're not going to go totems. Frankly, I think the hero power conversation is limited by Brucon. I think anybody who wants to have a late game grindy hero power that wears people down probably chooses Brucon instead, particularly with that deal 6 damage. That can just be more lethality presented than just some 6/2 totems on board. Best case scenario. Not great for hero power grindy card while Brucon's in rotation. Brucon will eventually rotate out prior to the Stone Right, so that gives an opening for the hero power like 8 months from now or whatever. And then more totems might come along in future expansions or the mini set. They might start easing totems into the standard format pool so that this gains value over time as well. So basically, right now, Stone Right doesn't look like a super strong card to me. Over time, I think this could be a fringe deck. I'm not sure this effect is going to be good enough to like empower a totem deck because number one, it's coming down on turn 4. That means your totem stat values aren't going to be increased until a little bit later into the game, and stat changes like that are less impactful the later they happen because they have less time to stack up and overwhelm your opponent. And your opponent's either already doing stuff, they're a control deck that has tons of removal spells, or aggro that's raced you down, or they're a combo deck that's enabling their combo pieces that late. Totems probably aren't going to do a lot. So I don't think there's ever like a tier 1 build around, frankly. Just takes a little too long to get online. So in essence, I think the best case scenario for this card is still kind of that mid-tier range, fringe meta card maybe at best. And even then, it might take a while to see the Stone Right in action. So I don't think this is ever going to be a tier 1 nightmare sort of card, and it's even going to take a while to see much play at all, is my guess. And then next up here we have the Sin-Fueled Golem, a new neutral minion at 7 mana with Infuse 3, gains stats equal to the attack of the minions that infused this. So we've got here a big bomb 7-drop that will theoretically scale up quite a bit as it gets infused. Now keep in mind, this is not gaining like an infinite amount of stats. It's really just from the 3 minions specifically that infused it. And presumably based on this wording, I think it's taking the attack, and then it's not just gaining attack, it's actually gaining stats. So if the combined units had, say, 5 attack, a 1, a 2, and a 3, let's say, then I believe this will gain 5/5 in stats. It will not merely be a 5/2. So in that case, specifically, you'd have a 7 mana 7/7, which in reality, that didn't sound too exciting. So ideally, of course, you're going to want this in hand and have big stuff die, so that if a 5 attack, a 5 attack, and a 5 attack minion die, you're adding 15/15 in stats to the Sin-Fueled Golem to potentially make this absolutely freaking enormous. Now, in that case, you're going to be dropping a big old bomb on board of an enormous minion, which historically in Hearthstone is not usually great stats just for the sake of stats. That late in the game often have a hard time making an impact. Just going to kind of be sitting there, you know, helpless body. It still gets removed pretty easily in many cases, and it came down too late to really make a gigantic impact on the course of the game. Not to mention, of course, that's like a perfect scenario setup with the exact right sort of minions dying. I think most infused decks and infused cards are going to look to be running really cheap things that are dying off very easily. A lot of 1/1s and 2/1s and little rushers and such. So I think you're much more likely to see this in that like 7/7 to 10/10 range than in those crazy ranges. But, you know, there's always like combo potentials there, especially in Wild. Make this guy absolutely freaking enormous and then kill people with it. That sounds like a very fun sort of OTK to enable. But as far as standard format is concerned, I just don't think that's going to make sense. It's too hard to line this one up. It's very situational and super dead when you top deck it, because of course it takes a while to infuse this up with stats that you care about. And the floor for this one, the worst case scenario, I think is really bad because of that top deck issue and because of the decks that sort of want to fuel this. I think you want infused cards that are doing things more immediate, more impactful, more directly, and don't demand that the infuse requires specific shapes of minions. You probably just want to be able to infuse for the sake of infuse. So this essentially feels awkward, more expensive, and really less impactful than most of the infused cards we've seen so far, some of which already have problems in that range. So will this be an insane arena card? Yeah, maybe. Good standard card? I really doubt it. The Stone Right is a 3-star card. Sin-Fueled Golem is a 2-star card. And there you go, folks. That wraps it up for this particular Hearthstone card review. Share your thoughts on these cards in the comments down below. Look forward to hearing what you think. Can you break the Sin-Fueled Golem in some way or another? I'm curious to hear that. But until then, thanks so much for watching, and until next time, game on.